I wanted to ask Jeremy a question that I thought of this morning in prepping for the show, and I wanted to dig up a ton of numbers on it. But the question is, open-ended, what's LSU's weakness as a football team right now? Not the team that showed up in the Superdome for Florida State, not the team that played week 3 or 4. Right now, as they're constituted, what is LSU's weakness?
Well, I guess it's not a stat you could point to, but I would say depth on the defensive line. I think that's something that, watching that game, especially late in that game, you really only have three defensive tackles you really trust, and 3 defensive ends you really trust. You got Alligay, you got BJ, and then you're kind of putting Perkins in there a little bit. And I think that's something that's kind of it's going to hurt this team if they can't play lights out football. You just saw them get tired in the fourth quarter. And then also I would say, scoring touchdowns early in football game. I know you scored 7 in the first half last week, but it's kind of been something that's kind of been wavy a little bit, up and down when you kind of look at the full season for this team. And now what's great is they're a great second half team. The scoring differentials is absolutely crazy when you kind of look at that. But to me, I kind of say that the depth up front with that D-line, and also just not really scoring touchdowns early.
When I started thinking about it, and you're right, the depth on the defensive line and some of the starts they've gotten off to, and special teams at times, there are some things you could point to say they haven't been great at that. But over the last, certainly the Ole Miss game and the Alabama game, none of those significant problems have really cropped up. And I started thinking about them going, I can't think of anything they're incredible at or have just otherworldly talent at, or anything that they just suck at that I know is going to cost them another game. So I listen to all these stats I pulled. I'm not going to go through them, but here's all the categories of statistics that I looked at. Scoring offense, rushing offense, passing offense, total offense, third down conversion rate, red zone scoring, red zone touchdown percentage, pass protection, scoring defense, run defense, pass defense, total defense, third down defense, red zone touchdown defense, tackles for loss. I looked at all these statistics from a national perspective and from an SEC perspective. LSU is in the top 2 in the conference in one of those stats. Red zone defense touchdowns allowed. So the defense allows touchdowns. Only Georgia allows fewer when teams get into the red zone. Everything else, they're pretty mediocre. Total offense, 6th in the conference. Total defense, 5th in the conference. Third down defense, 8th in the conference. Scoring offense, 5th in the conference. Red zone scoring percentage in the conference, they're ranked 7th. Like, they're in the middle of the league in just about everything. So they're not great at anything, statistically speaking. They're not awful at anything, statistically speaking. And they're really not making that many huge mistakes now. Now, they made huge mistakes against Florida State. Muffed a couple of points. Didn't necessarily cost you any points. Muffed a couple of punts. Didn't cost you points, but cost you possession. You got field goal blocked, extra point blocked. Huge mistakes. Against Tennessee, you made huge mistakes. You muff a punt. I mean, but they haven't done that over the last couple of weeks, and they've just been rock solid. Does that, as I read the statistics out and tell them to you, does that surprise you? Would you think they'd be towards the top of the league in something that they're not?
No, not really. I think because you've seen just back and forth play. It's not kind of what you've kind of seen from Georgia or some of these other teams where the defense is just dominant week in and week out, or the offense is just dominant week in. And we've seen this team score 13 points. We've seen this team have 5 passing yards in a half. We've also seen this team rush for 200 on certain people. So when you kind of get those back and forths on both sides of the ball, not even mentioning special teams, that's probably where you're going to end up. Rather, if you kind of just stick to being bad all year, then you'll be at the bottom half of the league, and then vice versa. If you're just totally dominating, you'll probably be in one of those top 3 categories. So that's about what I expect kind of when you kind of look at the full picture of this football team from when SEC play started, up and down, up and down. But I think the way they've been playing these past 4 weeks is something that, when you look at the end of the season, I wouldn't be shocked if they're a lot higher than they are right now.
There are 2 statistics in the conference where one you're 13th and one you're 14th. LSU is 13th, so second worst in the league in terms of getting sacked. They've been sacked 32 times. That's dead next to last in the league. In terms of that statistic, Florida had 1 sack against LSU. Ole Miss had 4. Tennessee had 5. Bama had 6. You've had some issues there, but part of that is your offensive line. Part of that is your quarterback is not putting the ball in harm's way. he's just taking a sack. He's not going to do something dumb when he gets hit or when he's in trouble. He's just kind of gotten sacked. So there's some good and bad there. We do want him to take some shots with the wide receivers, but at times he's just taking the safe route and taking a sack. The other thing, you're dead last in the conference in terms of tackles for loss on defense. You're 14th in creating tackles for loss. That surprised me a little bit because I think LSU's defensive front has played pretty well. I guess they're just not making plays behind the line of scrimmage very often.
Yeah, probably need Glenn Dorsey to do that. I'm sure Mason Smith probably help with that a little bit too. So, yeah, I think for me, the sack numbers really don't really move me that much anytime. You may be taking some, but you're also going to pop some out for 25-yard runs or pop some out for 30-yard runs. So it kind of evens out a little bit there. And then you got to factor in you do have 2 freshmen starting tackles on the outside and a quarterback, like you said, who really doesn't turn the ball over at a high clip. And I think that with the execution you've been having, you scored 32 last week, 45 the week before, 45 the week before that. I'll take those sack numbers as bad as they may be right now.
And so I gave you the conference stats, and they're all right there in the middle. And nationally, LSU's between like 16 and 40 in like everything. It's just 29th in scoring offense, 39th in scoring defense, 26th in red zone. I mean, it's just, you get the point. I'm not going to roll through the entire thing, but what you've just got is a team that across the board pretty much kind of does its job. Would you like to have something that you just knew you were showing up to the ballpark and they were going to be in big trouble with? Maybe that's the quarterback running. It's not a stat. Like the quarterback's just a dynamic athlete that makes you. And so I wouldn't suggest that this paints the entire picture, but I do find it interesting that when I thought about, okay, what's the weakness here? I couldn't come up with one that was stark. Yeah, Tennessee ran it down your throats. I got you. Yeah, Jordan Travis on third downs lit you up. I see that. Yeah, your running back play has not been dynamic, but none of it is like crippling. Like you just you can't cover anybody, or you never get a pass rush, or your quarterback throws an interception every single game out there. Like there's just not one Achilles that I could fall to. So it's 6 1/2 dozen the other. It's a team that's just kind of rock solid across the board, which in year one of this coaching staff and what he had to do, I guess it's pretty impressive that when you had 36 scholarship guys and now you look back in the middle of November and you look at the team you put up there, they don't have any gross weaknesses. That's pretty impressive.
No, it is. And I think obviously when you lose your best defensive player in the first game of the season and then you have offensive linemen in and out of the lineup, receivers missing time, backs missing time, and, all these things going on, which you kind of see the Saints not be able to figure out. I think Coach Kelly has done a phenomenal job with kind of all the missing pieces that you may have on any given week, but continuing having this team ready to play. And then you got to give more credit to just what they've done in a lot of second halves in these football games. Is really playing dominant brand of football and finding ways to win, which is definitely a great time to see in year one. So looking at the full picture, may not be a team that's top 1, top 2, top 3 in categories, but they're very competitive, and I'm sure a lot of teams just want to go play this version of the LSU Tigers.
No question about it.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.